They said Alexander Reed could buy anything in the world, except honesty. He was the kind of billionaire who didn't just own companies, he owned people's fears. But tonight, he'd find out something no amount of money could ever buy. Because tonight, he was going to pretend to sleep. And what his maid did next would leave him completely shattered. Quick cut, tense music builds. But before we dive into this shocking story of deception, heartbreak, and redemption, Speech Balloon, hit that like button and subscribe to The Kindness Chronicles. Because what you're about to hear might just change how you see humanity forever. Scene 1, The Lonely Mansion. Alexander Reed, 38, the CEO of Reed Global Enterprises, sat by the massive glass window of his penthouse, staring at the glittering city lights below. His face, handsome but cold, reflected the emptiness inside. Money. Power. Control. He had everything. Except trust. Every employee he'd ever hired, every assistant, every partner, sooner or later, wanted something. Except her. Clara Evans, 25, his new maid, shy, soft-spoken, always avoiding eye contact. She'd been working there for only 2 months. Unlike others, she never asked for a raise, never looked impressed by his wealth. If anything, she looked afraid of him. Scene 2, The Test. One night, after a long day of board meetings and betrayal, Alexander decided to test her. "I'll see what people really do when they think no one's watching," he muttered, loosening his tie. He'd heard from his head of security that some of his staff had been stealing little things, jewelry, cash, alcohol. He'd already fired 3. So, he came up with a cruel plan. He'd lie down on the sofa in his study, half covered in a blanket, pretending to have fallen asleep after drinking. On the glass coffee table beside him, he placed his black wallet, intentionally open, with a few $100 bills peeking out. He dimmed the lights, left a camera rolling quietly in the corner, and waited. Scene 3, The Maid enters. The clock ticked past midnight. Soft footsteps echoed in the marble hallway. Clara entered the room quietly, wearing her plain blue uniform, her light brown hair tied neatly in a bun. She moved slowly, carefully wiping the glass tables, dusting the corners. Alexander's eyes remained half open, just enough to see her reflection in the glass. She looked tired. Her eyes had dark circles, but her movements were graceful, almost tender, like she respected even the walls. When she reached near the sofa, her gaze fell on the open wallet. Alexander's heart began to race. Cinematic zoom in, the camera focuses on her trembling hand reaching toward the wallet. She hesitated. Her lips parted slightly. She looked around the room, silence. Then, she picked it up. Alexander's chest tightened. So, she's like the rest, he thought bitterly. But then something unexpected happened. She walked over to the lamp, turned it slightly toward him, and whispered softly. "Sir, you shouldn't sleep here, you'll catch a cold." She gently covered him with the blanket, her hand barely brushing his shoulder. Then she looked down at the wallet, sighed deeply, and pulled something out, not money, but a small photograph. It was of a woman, Alexander's late mother. He'd kept it tucked in there for years. Clara stared at it for a long moment, tears glistening in her eyes. "I miss her too," she whispered. Alexander's eyes snapped open, confusion hit him like a wave. How could she possibly know my mother? But before he could move, Clara carefully placed the wallet back exactly as it was, then took out a small folded note from her pocket and slipped it under the glass. Then she turned, wiped her tears quickly, and left the room, silently, like a shadow. Scene 4, The Note. As soon as she was gone, Alexander sat up, grabbing the note with trembling fingers. It read, "Mr. Reed. I'm sorry for touching your things. I just wanted to make sure your mother's photo doesn't fall. She once helped my family years ago. When my father lost everything, she paid for my school secretly. I recognized her the day I started here. Thank you for letting me clean her home. Clara. Alexander froze. He remembered it now. His mother used to help struggling families quietly through church donations. She never told him names. His throat tightened. He had tested this woman for greed, and instead, found grace. He opened the security footage, and saw her doing exactly what he'd seen, careful, kind, never taking a cent. But what broke him, was what she did after she left the room. Scene 5, the hidden camera revelation. He rewound the footage. Clara had gone into the kitchen, where she thought no one could see. She sat down by the sink, pulled out a half-eaten sandwich from a napkin, and ate silently, wiping her tears. Then she took out an envelope, filled with cash, and whispered to herself. This should be enough to pay Mom's hospital bill this week, just 2 more shifts. Alexander's heart shattered. All this time, he'd assumed she was poor and desperate, maybe dishonest. But she was honest despite being desperate. He couldn't sleep that night. The note kept replaying in his mind. His mother's memory, Clara's kindness, her quiet suffering, it all hit him like a storm. The man who had everything had just realized, he'd never truly seen people. Scene 6, the next morning. The next morning, Clara entered the mansion again, as always, quietly, avoiding eye contact. But this time, something was different. Alexander was waiting for her in the living room, dressed casually, holding a cup of coffee. Clara, he said softly. She froze. Yes, sir. He handed her a small folded paper, the same note she'd left him. Her face went pale. I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't mean to. He interrupted her gently. Your mother, she's sick. Her eyes welled up. Yes, sir. She needs surgery, but it's okay. I'll manage. I don't want to bother anyone. Alexander's voice trembled. You remind me of my mother. She would have been proud to know her kindness lives on through you. He pulled out a checkbook, scribbled something, and handed it to her. She looked down, and gasped. $50,000. Sir, I can't. You can, he said softly. It's not charity. It's repayment. For what you reminded me tonight. Tears streamed down Clara's face. Thank you, but how did I remind you of anything? Alexander looked toward the glass window, his reflection faintly smiling. You reminded me that the real test in life isn't about what people do when we watch them. It's about what they do when they think no one ever will. Piano music swells. Clara wipes her tears, holding the check like it's a miracle. Scene 7, the silent apology. Later that evening, Alexander stood in his study again, staring at the same couch where he'd faked sleep. He whispered quietly, I'm sorry, Mom, for becoming the man you'd never want me to be. Then he took out his mother's photograph and placed it beside Clara's note, framing them together on his desk. The camera slowly zooms out as the lights fade to black. And in the dark, Alexander's voice echoes. Sometimes, it takes pretending to sleep to finally wake up. Narrator, gentle, emotional tone. If this story touched your heart, sparkling heart, don't forget to like this video. And subscribe to The Kindness Chronicles for more stories that prove there's still goodness in this world. Because sometimes, the smallest act of honesty can awaken the biggest change in a heart that's forgotten how to feel.